Hey guys, this video is a part of a longer and a more elaborate video about the express entry process where I detail all the way from the time you decide to the time you land and settle. You might want to go ahead and see that video first. You can click on this link right now to go to that video and have a look at the entire express entry process, which I have shared in as much detail as possible. If you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, I will truly appreciate it. And let's go ahead and watch this video. The next step in the immigration process after PPR is stamping. So go ahead, grab all your passports and rush to the nearest VFS. VFS are third party agents who help you transmit your passport from your location to the Canadian consulate, where it will get printed, stamped and sent back to you. They will handle your passports very carefully. Purely out of personal experience, I've seen that VFS accepts only cash payment and not card payment, so you might need to be aware of that. You
Along
need to
with
take
the
recently
passport,
shot photographs of yourself printed to a certain specification as given in the email. If you're based out of US or Canada, you might need to mail your passports directly to Ottawa along with printed copies of your photos. The IRCC office at Ottawa will print your visa and stamp it on your passport and ship it back to you. The whole process, either going through VFS or through Ottawa, takes about 2 to 3 weeks. What you will get in the mail is a single entry visa stamped in your passport and a separate document called as the confirmation of permanent residence, or the COPR. Let us go ahead and see what these documents look like. This is the visa stamped on my passport. As you can see, this visa was issued in New Delhi. The number of entries I can make with this visa is only one. This is a single entry visa, and the category of this visa is an immigrant visa, which means I am moving there permanently. This is only for one person. The most important thing in this visa is the expiry date, which I've shaded out. The expiry date tells me when is the latest I can land in Canada. I cannot land beyond this date, and beyond this date this document is not valid and I might need to apply again, or I might need to start the whole express entry process from scratch. The next document I want to show you is the confirmation of permanent residence. As you can see, there is my name, gender, citizenship and so on. There is my universal client identifier, UCI, application number, document number and so on. At a high level, it gives some information about my personal details, about where I was born, my eye color and so on. And there is the application details about where the COPR was issued at. In my case, my COPR was issued at New Delhi. It tells me a few conditions that if I were to commit a crime or an offense, I might be refused admission to Canada and I would be required to leave Canada. This is my medical details, and this is the sponsor information. Any dependents that I have in my application will be printed here. You should make sure that you make no changes to this document. You don't put any pen marks, because this document will be signed by the immigration officer along with a date when you land, and this will be the date when you actually become a permanent resident. You are not a permanent resident yet, and I cannot travel with this document, so that's why it says it's not valid for travel. I cannot land in Canada with just this document in my hand. This is part 12 of my express entry video, and we are going to look at the steps of landing and settling. I've combined landing and settling together in one part because I didn't want to create a separate section 13. This is the part where you become a permanent resident, and like I said, you become a permanent resident only on the day you land and not on the day you get your visa. Let us look at the components that go into the landing process. I want to reiterate that it is obligatory that you need to land before your visa expiry date, which is stamped on your passport. And now that you know your visa expiry date, you can land in two ways. You can do what is called as the soft landing and what is called as the hard landing. The soft landing is where you land and then you go back to your home country and come back to Canada when you're ready to settle. Hard landing is when you land and then you settle right there, which is more suitable for bachelors or single people. No matter which landing approach you take, there are a few steps. That the first thing you need is have a valid local address, local as in local to Canada. This is the address to which your permanent resident card will be shipped. While it is mandatory that you need to have a valid local address, and none of your immigration documents will mention that you need a valid local address at the time time of landing, but this seems to be the case. I did see a form at the airport which let you update your local address later for your card to be shipped, and until which your card will be put on hold. You want to get your permanent resident card in your hands as soon as possible so that you can fly out and fly back at will. You cannot fly back in without your permanent resident card. Alternately, if you don't have a valid local address, you can find out if your friends or family or your friends of friends can help you in this process in Canada. In the worst case, if there's no one to help you, you can try to convince your Airbnb owner to collect the card on your behalf, and you can give your Airbnb's address, and you can also make a payment to the Airbnb owner to ship that card back to you to your foreign address, or you can give him a prepaid envelope to ship to you. The next step is booking your flight. There are multiple factors that you need to consider when you book your flight, like the weather at the time of your landing, the best time to fly, the best time at which the rates will be cheap, and whether you want to fly east to west or west to east. This is a whole other topic which I'll be covering in a subsequent video. Now that you have booked your flight, you have your local address and you have your passport and visa stamped, you can go ahead and land in Canada. At the time of landing, you will pass through the immigration gate and you will go into a separate zone which is for permanent resident and for advanced screening. This is where the immigration officer will verify your documents and will officially stamp your confirmation of permanent resident or COPR document, and this is the date and time at which you have become a permanent resident. This is also probably a good time to stop and pat yourself on your back and probably head to the nearest bathroom, look at yourself in the mirror and shout yes, yes, yes. Now calmly return to the immigration office and keep a poker face and not show your excitement and go ahead with the rest of your day. This landing date or the permanent resident date is the date which is going to be used for calculation purpose of your minimum residency. At this point, I also want to remind that you need to maintain a minimum residency of 2 years in a 5-year window to continue being a permanent resident, otherwise you will lose your permanent residency. Now where should you land? There are multiple ports at which you could land, and you could land either through road or through air. If you're coming from US, you can land through road or air, and if you're coming from other countries, you might need to land through air. Your port of entry could be any airport in Canada. Quebec is not a recommended airport to land because Quebec's landing rules and immigration rules are different if you're going through express entry. Quebec is a valid landing location only if you're going through Quebec provincial nomination. Now that you've landed, here are a few things which in my opinion are very important that you need to take care of. The first thing is getting a social identification number. The social identification number can be applied right at the airport at the time of landing, assuming that you land between 9 to 5 a.m. local time at the port of landing. The next is you need to have your Airbnb or hotel booked in advance when you land. It's very difficult to land and then go and hunt for a hotel, especially with the tiredness and jet lag that you're currently having. The next is signing up for a bank account. Signing up for a bank account as a permanent resident is very easy with just your COPR and your passport. You might be able to do that in the airport itself, since banks have kiosks at the airport itself to sign up permanent residents. You should also be able to get your credit card right there. Getting a credit card approval for permanent residents is very easy and they are pre-approved. And during the few days you land, you might also want to prepare for your G1 test in advance if you're landing in Ontario. This is what I did. This makes it easy for you to apply for your G2 test when you return later. There are several other things which you could do at the time of landing, which I'll be covering in a separate video. And finally, I need to insist and I want to remind you that all applicants in your express entry application need to land even if they are kids. If all applicants don't land within the visa expiry date, they essentially lose the permanent resident or the opportunity to land as a permanent resident. The last is the settlement step, and I want to revisit the little dream that I sold you at the beginning of this video, where there's going to be a beautiful house, your family, a sunset in your backyard and the grill in the front yard. This is me at the moment and this is my family, and I've tried to represent them as accurately as I can with my awesome drawing skills. Let us go ahead and look at a few of the settlement issues. These are not exhaustive, but these are the few I could think of at the moment and the things which I'm dealing with at the moment of publication of this video. The first thing is receiving your PR card. Hopefully, if you have given your local address, you should have your PR card sent to you by snail mail in a month or so, and you should be able to admire them. The next is getting a driving license and learning how to use the public transport. Getting a driving license can be very complicated in Canada because the rules are very strict strict, and even if you have driving experience in another country, driving in Canada or North America is way different relative to other countries. The next is buying a car. Buying a car can be tricky whether you want to buy new or used. You definitely want to consider whether you want to buy a car based on your financial status. I also want to remind you that the insurance rates in Canada are insane. It is just unbelievable, especially if you're from a country like India. However, it becomes kind of mandatory if you have a child and you don't want your child to suffer in the cold weather, especially in the first year of settlement. So it kind of mandates the need for a car. If you're single, it completely makes sense to not buy a car and just use public transportation. The next is getting your health insurance applications. If you're in Ontario, you might want to get your OHIP. The next is renting an apartment. Renting an apartment is very tricky because you're a new immigrant and you don't have credit history and so on. There's going to be a separate video where I'm going to tackle the issue of renting an apartment. The next is weather, and you know that in Canada the weather is extreme. The next is consideration for the extreme weather in Canada. It gets really cold for about half the year, and if you go up north it becomes even more cold. So dealing with the weather is an altogether separate topic where you need to shovel snow, pick the right kind of jackets and shoes, snowshoes and so on. The next is finding a school for your kids. This is a very important topic for me because I have two kids. Finding a school is purely based on finding a home in the right kind of location, which is usually referred to as a school district. There's a huge topic about how to find a school, how to find a good school district, school ratings, and so on. So stay tuned to my videos to cover these topics. Each of these topics are things which I'm dealing with right now in my life, and I'll be making elaborate videos about each of them, and I'll be talking about my experience about how I tackle them, which should hopefully rub off onto you and help you settle easier. Let us zoom out a bit and let's see all the ground that we have covered till now. We started from decision preparation and we got the invite, then we applied, we stamped and we landed, and finally we have settled and we are living the dream life right now. We have come a long way and we should be proud of ourselves. Hopefully I've covered as much ground as I can and as many topics I could think of in as much detail as possible. Hey folks, thank you for watching this video, and like I said, this video is a part of a longer and a more elaborate video. It takes a lot of time to make these kind of videos. I will appreciate it if you could like this video, subscribe to this channel, and if you have any thoughts regarding the express entry process or if you have any questions, feel free to post in the comments. I reply to every single comment that I see in my videos. Thank you very much. These kind of videos take a lot of time. If you can show your appreciation, that would be great. Thank you and bye-bye.